Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the McConnor Man at YouTube with another model tank video. Today we have the entire collection of the 4D 1/72 Series 2 of tanks. We built a couple of the Series 1. They are very cheap, retailing at approximately $3 to $5 to $10. And depicting all sorts of different random subjects in different periods, utilising the same track work and hull with different top detail and turrets. They were suitable for children, definitely nowhere near good enough for scale modelers, especially since some of the subjects did depict tanks that do not exist in plastic models. Series 2 does something very similar. There's 4 tanks, 2 different colour variations. I'm looking at the KV-2, made very popular in video games and Girls and Panzer, mostly the war simulations such as World of Tanks. These can be very hard to find in counterparts like the Trumpeter one I've built. They're sold at a premium or fairly obscure to find online. Season 1's biggest criticism is the top bottom hull and the tracks were exactly the same for each tank, even though they depicted different sizes and periods from modern to World War II. This made the scales incorrect and all the hulls were designed to fit inside the box. Season 2 uses the same bottom hull piece, which is incorrect for every single tank except for some bizarre modern piece. But the side wheels, the top hull, the turret is all different. Do keep in mind that due to the distortion of the scale, the details, the parts, the scale is highly inaccurate and only made to fit in the material provided of the mould and these very small boxes. Looking inside the box, we're given an 8-step instruction sheet printed on a piece of paper. 2 rubber tracks, which is a big surprise from the all moulded plastic tracks previously, a different top hull and a runner to make up any machine guns, the top turret, the cannon and extra bits and pieces, different set of road wheels that are a little more believable to this subject matter. Bit of a background information: 4D is a government owned company in mainland China and is more targeted at creating teaching aids and educational material for school or young kids to develop in home. They specialized originally with small toys of dinosaurs, animals and body parts to build up an anatomy set and have a look at planets, continents of the world, that sort of thing. They started getting into plastic models several years ago in these small boxes at an affordable rate and a larger 48 scale where it's more of a traditional model. Where they're pretty innovative is their plastic being a reclaimed ABS. From what I can feel, it is completely recycled, leaving a slight texture material and being molded in black. So there's multiple different plastics coming together and a dye to make it all uniform. Also targeting the fact that these are designed for educational purposes of younger kids in China, they're pre-coloured so painting is not required. It's a general spray job, no further detail, but there is some form of acrylic plastered all over the top, which is easy to sand off. In the way of the moulding of this plastic, a bit of a buffing is required and there is inconvenient injector pin marks as well as flash lines in certain areas. This is fairly easy enough to clean up when needed. Going with the current trend with many model kits to be easier for people with less attention span and taking advantage of better tooling and moulding machines, this kit is completely snap fit, not requiring any glue, which is ideal due to the inferior plastic not reacting as well to plastic cement. All of my gluing was done with super glue. These kits also have been cited in Walmart in the United States, being fairly available all around the world, though most would have been curious to see it on eBay or Amazon and purchased it thinking it was a traditional scale model as depicted by the scale on it, and being fairly disappointed with reports on social media. They do intend to have some form of playability by adding hinges where the hatch is and having any sort of turret and gun being posable with limited articulation. Besides out of the box building, I've decided to super glue the rubber onto the wheels. It fitted on fairly well. The fit can be tight from parts to parts with a little bit of force required. The plastic is fairly fixed and there's a very low chance due to thicknesses of all areas that any breakages will occur to be suitable for playing with younger kids. There is a lot of hollow voids in areas under the cannon, the side of the cannons. This was all filled with milliput sculpting putty to make it all flat. You're all probably also wondering why I am playing with such an inferior and cheap kit. I find it fascinating that it appears so often on social media and in discussion. It's worth building and pointing out that it may not be an ideal product depending on what you're aiming for if you want to have a cheap build, but I do choose to voluntarily import and sell them through my hobby shop, the Salt Mines, targeting younger kids who are being dragged around with their parents at hobby shows and giving them a taste or an introduction to the hobby without ruining a finer kit, slobbering paint all over it and building up dioramas and just having a lot of fun before you do something that's more serious like a dragging kit or a trumpeter and burning out completely without having anything finished in hand. At this stage, everything is done, filled a few seam lines with a touch of putty, sanded it up and chucked lacquer Tamiya grey primer on any surface that's painted or unpainted. Whatever paint they used, it doesn't lift easily through sanding or masking, so it's quite safe to sit under there, and blended a few different greens and lacquers to build up that Russian Soviet look, stylized it a bit with heavier shading, utilized a Gaia Notes rustic red as an appropriate undercoat, and introduced some third-party decals I had laying around for markings. It doesn't come with stickers or decals, but if you've got an extensive decal bin as I do, or buy a few bits and pieces off the internet, you will have a surplus amount for other subjects that are just not as precious or close to you. This was also an ideal situation to touch up in hand painting and experimenting with weathering and washes and streaking and other things, and having a bit of fun without any stress on ruining a prime project or more of an expensive kit. My intent may have been in doing a cartoony version or a World War II style finish and presenting it as a loose, almost fantasy Soviet video game tank. By no means this is an accurate KV-2, but other people looking at this, watching the review and looking to buy up a stock of very cheap kits may be interested in kit bashing it, converting it and playing with it further by mixing parts and putty to give it more of a wargaming or science fiction feel or tone. If you're in the wargaming sphere, you can buy a ton of these for next to nothing, mass spray them and chuck them on the field for a very quick, inefficient game, a display, or you can cut it down further and create whole new structures like a Maschenkrieger aesthetic or other super sci-fi projects. It is a cheap source of parts and entertainment for people who do have a more heavier set of skills. Personally, I'm a big fan of vintage models where the molding technology is a bit basic and it is inaccurate due to the limitations of the period in releasing models and toys at affordable price. I find that this is sort of a second coming of that period for the second and the third world, getting these hands in people from other parts of the world and introducing younger kids to modelling instead of snobbing them out. I had a fair amount of fun with it, though I don't think I'm going to be building any more of it. The finish is nice. I kind of wish I went back and just went a bit crazy and scratch building a bit of a base and went full sci-fi weird. Might do that later on down the track, but it's a sufficient enough finish for this video review and a bit of a mental break or a basic build in between something more complex. Thank you very much for watching. As always, until next time, stay tuned for further content. Catch out all the social media links down below in the description, as well as other sources, and we'll catch you guys next time. Stay tuned for more.